The heartbreaking murder of Aliana Defreeze, a story of injustice and failure. Today, we dive into the tragic story of Aliana Defreeze, a 14-year-old girl whose life was cut short in one of the most horrifying ways imaginable. Aliana was murdered on January 26, 2017, and her story is one of both horror and systemic failures. Today, we'll break down the details of Aliana's life, her untimely death, and the shocking discovery that led to the identification of the person responsible. This is the heartbreaking case of the murder of Aliana Defreeze. Aliana Defreeze was born on June 12, 2002, in Detroit, Michigan, and her family eventually moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where she spent most of her life. She was a bubbly and innocent 14-year-old with a loving family, consisting of her mother, Denisha, and her father, Damon, along with her stepmother, Juan, who had become a second mother to her. Despite her developmental delay, Aliana was a loving and bright child who was passionate about school and rarely missed a day. In 2017, Aliana was a 7th grader at E-Prep, a charter school in Cleveland. Because the school was far from home, Aliana had to take public transportation to and from school each day. Her parents were protective and often worried about her taking the bus, but they felt some comfort in knowing that one of her bus stops was near a police station. January 26th started like any other day. Aliana was scheduled for a 7 a.m. tutoring session, and her mother walked her to the bus stop as part of their morning routine. Aliana was in a rush, but turned back to give her mom a kiss and said goodbye. Little did they know, this would be the last time Denisha would see her daughter. Aliana boarded the bus, headed to school, but never arrived. Denisha tried calling her, but the calls went straight to voicemail. The day went by, and still no sign of Aliana. When she called the school, she was told that Aliana hadn't shown up that day. Panic set in, and Denisha immediately reported Aliana missing to the Cleveland police. As hours turned into days, the search for Aliana intensified. Police checked the area around her school, places where teens were known to hang out, and even contacted the Transportation Authority to obtain surveillance footage from the buses. The footage confirmed that Aliana had boarded her first bus, but after that, the trail went cold. Denisha also learned that the school's absentee notification system had malfunctioned, causing a delay in the investigation. This delay in communication became a significant factor in the investigation, with precious hours being lost. Meanwhile, the fear of something far worse had set in. 3 days later, on January 29, 2017, Aliana's body was discovered in an abandoned house just 2 blocks away from her usual bus stop. The property had been left open, and as officers entered, they immediately noticed bloody footprints and blood spattered on the walls. The condition of the home and the items inside suggested that something horrific had occurred there. When the medical examiner arrived, it was confirmed that the body was Aliana's. The examination revealed the brutal truth. Aliana had been sexually assaulted, beaten, and tortured for hours before being killed. After discovering Aliana's body, investigators worked tirelessly to find the person responsible. They went back to the surveillance footage, where they caught a glimpse of a man interacting with Aliana near a church. The footage showed the man speaking to Aliana and leading her away. Investigators followed this lead, hoping it would be the break they needed. Eventually, they were able to identify the man seen in the footage, and they learned that he had a history of violence. The man's identity was eventually revealed as 48-year-old Christopher Whitaker, a man who had been previously arrested for violent offenses. He was arrested and charged with the murder of Aliana Defreeze. Aliana's tragic death exposed multiple failures in the systems meant to protect her. From the malfunctioning absentee system at her school to the delayed response from the authorities, it became clear that if the system had worked as it should have, Aliana might have been found sooner, and her killer could have been stopped before this tragedy occurred. Aliana's story is a reminder that the safety of children, especially young Black girls, is far too often overlooked. It's a call to action for everyone to be vigilant and ensure that such failures never happen again. If you found this story as heartbreaking and disturbing as I did, please take a moment to reflect on how we can all do better to protect the vulnerable in our communities. Aliana's story is one that deserves to be remembered, not just for the tragedy, but for the lessons it teaches about justice, responsibility, and the importance of timely intervention.